So there is no formal intro, is there really? I don't think, but I don't think an introduction is needed, but thank you for coming, Mr. Meakins.
Thanks for the invite.
It's great to have you.
We don't technically have a formal podcast as such, do we? So I don't think it needs a formal introduction.
Nah,
so
happy with that.
Yeah?
Yeah.
How's the journey up?
Yeah, not too bad. Got a nosebleed after the Watford gap.
Yeah.
Like us Southerners tend to, but apart from that, no, it was all right.
What do you class as the North, actually, as a Southerner?
Anything past the Watford gap.
Wow. I'll take that, to be fair.
Yeah.
Actually, no, I'm not having the Midlands. We're not having them as Northerners.
No.
That's that debate, isn't it? Where's the Midlands start and
I mean, to be fair, anything south of the Humber Bridge for me. I'd have Lincoln in the south. They're a bit, they're different there.
Yeah, I think I'd probably go Nottingham, I think.
Yeah, you're South Sheffield, aren't you? So,
yeah.
Makes
So
sense.
technically I'm a Southerner to you, aren't I? So, but yeah, so I think we'll get stuck into it, to be honest. I think we'll go with the first question. So I'll open the general forum with, where do we see the role of physiotherapy evolving over the next 5 to 10 years?
Start off with the easy question first, yeah?
Yeah, why not? These are actually Alex's questions.
Okay.
So
I chucked me under the bus there. Want me to answer it?
Why not?
It seems to be going in two different directions. Like, I do think, which we're probably going to touch upon, I think NHS and private have to come to some sort of working collab somewhere along the line, whatever that looks like. I'm not sure. I know we certainly are starting to see referrals via third parties that it makes sense for me to somewhat remove them third parties and just have a local network. We always try and work with local CHCP, local community physios more directly. One, in theory, it should make it cheaper and just better links and relationships across both the service user and the physios. But where it's going, as I say, it's hard because my social media now is just like-minded physios and then the extremes of the idiots who are waffling all the other sort of stuff. So it's hard, I think, to gauge where the middle ground is and what physios is. We're very, we see what Flex does and we have our way of working. So, it's, I think there has to be some form of pushing towards, at university level, more S&C, more loading, more training around that element.
Yeah.
But where the profession's going as a whole, I don't know. Not one for me to answer.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if I go for the cloud in the sky, ultimate wish dream, which I don't think is going to happen, what I would like to see is that physiotherapy is considered to be the first point of contact for a musculoskeletal ache or pain that anybody has. So instead of that initial thinking, I need to go see the doctor, that ultimately physio gets a reputation as being the profession that when you've got backache, your knee hurts when you run, you've got some shoulder pain in the gym, you go and see a physio rather than going to see your doctor.
Yeah.
So that I think is something I hope we can achieve by marketing.
Yeah.
Trying to get the word out there, trying to generate respect and confidence in the general public.
Yeah, definitely.
Which I think is difficult to do, particularly with all the silly bullshit that's out there.
Yeah,
people look at and go, who the fuck are these idiots?
Yeah.
Why would I trust this person with a potentially serious concerning issue that I've got when they're rubbing cups and metal instruments up and down people? That doesn't instill confidence in a healthcare professional.
Yeah.
I think on that as well as the patients don't know. I think some professions don't know what physio is. No. Certainly, I think some surgeons don't have a full understanding of how you get from A to B. I think the doctors don't. I've had a conversation with doctors that don't know we're a recognised profession under the same HCPC.
Yeah. I think the variation is a massive issue there. The variation in thinking, in approaches, in treatment techniques. It's good in one way because it gives us options, but it's also problematic when we don't have a core principle, because that then causes a lot of confusion.
Yeah,
I couldn't agree more, actually. And all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
That really does not help with building that respect and confidence in the general population. And I see the same with my experience working on the other side of the coin now in the role that I have in an orthopaedic department alongside registrars and consultants. And I hear what they say about physiotherapy, and they don't have the confidence in it either.
Yeah,
You know, they say, I know this person needs physio. There's nothing here for us to operate on, but I don't think physio is probably going to help this person because they see the other side of it. They refer them into physio, and then they come back 3 months later for a review.
Yeah.
How's it gone? I'm no better. Well, what happened? Well, I went and had this thing rubbed up and down on me, and I sat there in a room with a light shining on me with this machine.
Yeah.
So I think, you know, it is, as you said, it's a problem with the doctors not having the confidence and the trust to refer into us, but also the public looking outside and thinking, why would I go and see these people?
And how do you think we work on that with the professions then? So how do you think we can increase better working relations, I guess, with...
I think it starts at the education level. I think, you know, it's trying to clear out all the unnecessary bits that a lot of physios are taught about.
Okay, yeah.
And trying to teach it in a bit more of a simplistic, straightforward manner, rather than trying to make things out more, you know, complicated and specific as I was taught, and I think a lot of physios are taught.
Yeah, we were the same, I'd say, weren't we?
You know, all this belief that you have to find the correct exercise for the right pathology. That you have to do the right manual therapy technique for that specific issue. That sort of approach needs to be changed at an education level, so students, new grads come out with a bit more of a rational, simplistic mindset. Yeah. And then I think they're going to do less of the silly bullshit, basically.
Yeah. I mean, so I had a chat with a couple of American physios, and their education is very different. Theirs is like a doctorate, isn't it? And again, I'm sure they have lots of bullshit in there as well. Yeah. But the essence of it is where they spend their last 2 years sort of specialising in a certain area. Do you think that would translate into England at all? Or
yeah, that's something. I mean, back 20 years ago, more than 20 years ago, when I was training, that was something that was under discussion on the cards about happening. Yeah, back then, and
so you could specialise a lot earlier.
Yeah, so when if you're a physio that wants to go into musculoskeletal physio, you have this option at your last year to focus more on training and education than that. Yeah. Because I think, you know, that's sometimes an issue with the training is that it spreads itself too thin.
I agree.
It tries to go for respiratory, pediatrics, all that other neurological stuff, rather than just saying, as a physio, what is you want to do?
Yeah, definitely.
My last 6 months of physio at uni were how to build a CV.
Yeah.
It was hardly hitting. Didn't do any practicals. It was put a portfolio together because you're preparing for a mock interview. No, I wouldn't go for an interview.
And I remember doing that, was it arterial blood gases and stuff like that? And I'm like, why am I've got no interest in this whatsoever. I know cardiorespiratory physio is a thing. Yeah. I personally don't want to do it.
Yeah.
But I still had to spend...
I was the same for respiratory.
Yeah, same for respiratory.
6 months learning it all. And I've never used it since.
Same.
That 6 months could have been spent better learning other things.
Yeah.
And to come back to that point about that first port of call, so your brother's a GP, got friends who are GPs, their education, they spent 15 hours of lectures in 5 years on MSK conditions. You know, at that time I'd spent 3 years just in MSK and sports rehab and still didn't know anything really coming out of uni. You don't, do you? So I completely, that has to happen for me for you know, the doctor not being the gatekeeper for MSK conditions. And we're seeing it slowly with Oc Health because management referrals, rather than the nurses doing MSK management referrals, physios, we have our part in it. You know, we can triage and diagnose and advise Oc Health departments and HR departments, in my opinion, certainly much more than a nurse can.
I mean, just coming back to that misinformation piece, I know we've all done posts on posture and stuff, but as of today, still the amount of misinformation that surrounds posture in the workplace is so damaging to employees because, and we see it on a daily basis, the amount of people that think they are actually getting injured because of the way they sit. Yeah. But you actually have to tread quite carefully because if you go in all guns blazing saying you're fundamentally wrong, you're going to upset a lot of people because it's almost like this belief system that they've had for such a long time is you're now going, what you've been taught is fundamentally wrong. And I think particularly when I was coming through, I'd go as far to say, and it might be a little bit of confirmation bias on my own part, but I'd go as far to say I think the physiotherapy industry, because of social media, has probably come its furthest in the last 10 years than I think it ever has. When I was coming through and looking at physiotherapy, it was always the same thing, but it's because of social media. And that was my point about the next 5 to 10 years, is that I think it's the quickness to get a research paper is, has never been so great. And then that allows us to at least be a little bit more challenging on what's going on, i.e. posture. Ash, obviously, we were talking about Ash earlier about going on national television and saying what he said, which was fantastic and needed to be said. So yeah, we see it on a daily basis, don't we? So,
Change takes time. That's the thing, as you said. If you go in too hard, too aggressive, we're trying to change people's expectations and beliefs. You just get that kickback. That kickback effect.
Yeah,
so it has to be done slowly, gradually, respectfully, compassionately. Nobody wants to feel like they've been fooled or misled. Because we don't like to have that feeling of stupidity and foolishness. So we have to sort of tactfully, carefully say it. And the way I often navigate that is I tell people, look, I used to think this as well.
We do. We do.
I'm like, these were beliefs that I
had. Absolutely.
But I've now changed my mind and opinion, which was really uncomfortable and really unpleasant and fucked me off a lot. Made me feel like a dickhead, So, it was this unpleasant feeling and period of time that you have to go through to get to the other side. And it just takes time and it takes effort as well. The easier thing to do is just ignore it. Okay, I'm just going to carry on doing what I've always done.
Definitely. We see it with people that come, like I used to see him 9 years ago. Oh, my hips just need popping back in like you used to. Well, on that, now since you brought it up, mate, sit yourself down, son.
I need to re-explain myself.
It's a refund for 9 years ago.
I look back sometimes and think, if I look back on my notes, what would I feel back now? If I went back just 5-10 years, I'd be reading things. And I've seen that in my own blogs, in my own writing as well. Going back and looking at a few of my blogs that I put on social media 5 years ago. I'm like, okay.
Can't regurgitate that one.
Let's quick edit it. Pretend I never said it.
And what do you feel about, obviously, it's been a bit of a space that me and Al have been championing, so genuinely want your honest opinion. When you compare like how online is headed for physio, we're trying to champion it quite a bit, and not because of a financial sense, but purely because we've looked to the PT industry and how successful it's been rolled out there. How do you see? Do you think it has a place? Do you think it's we're flogging a bit of a dead horse? What are the barriers? What are your thoughts on using online as a medium for kind of, because we tried to introduce it into the NHS years ago, didn't we? And we got so much pushback. But our opinion of the pushback was the actual physios themselves, rather than, like you say, people. Particularly, I think within our profession, I've always said this, I think we are one of the biggest professions that is so reluctant to change. What are your thoughts on the use of online and what the PT industry has done and stuff like that, really?
I think it has, as you say, benefits and opportunities that are undervalued and underused. I think it is something that has, a lot of applicability for people to get easier access to content, to information, to assistance, to treatment when they probably wouldn't have. But there are also negatives and downsides to it as well. It's like anything. Nothing's perfect.
Absolutely.
And it won't suit everybody. There will be people that will still want to have that physicality and that contact with people. Definitely. But I think, the shit show that we went through with COVID did sort of give that people that little bit of a taster and experience that it is possible to do physiotherapy online. The trouble we had is that physiotherapy as a profession, again, in the mind's eye of the public, is considered to be a profession of intervention, of touching, of doing things to them. It isn't well perceived as a place where you go and get advice and guidance and support. It's, you go and get something done to you rather than get some information about what I can do to help myself. And so, with that perception still going around in the general population at the moment, majority of the time, they ain't going to see why would I want to go and see a physio online when they're not going to be able to touch me.
Absolutely.
They ain't going to be able to do that. So that is a barrier that we've got to try and get over. And again, going back to what we said earlier with, changing the public's perception of what a physio actually is.
Absolutely. Yeah, really good. So next question then, I guess, to the room. what are the key challenges that physiotherapists are likely to face in the coming years, and how can we prepare for them?
Another easy question.
I regret writing these bastards now.
Yeah. Say it's your fault.
God and Bennett.
I mean,
You can start with it. You can start with it.
Yeah, no, because I've actually got. I think we've kind of touched on it very lightly, but and let's start where in social media. I think you've been in it for a long time. We came to it. We came to it quite late on, really.
On social media.
Yeah. Like we'd done a lot of the work that you've seen, like physical work in terms of building, a clinic and all that sort of stuff. And then the way that we fell into it was a really good friend of ours who is an online PT. He has made a very successful business off of Instagram and Instagram alone. So we thought, why not? Like we had a decision to make. We either don't do it whole hog or go whole hog on it. So we did. And I think to be honest, I did not understand just how toxic a place it can be. I mean, I was so naive to that. Like the comment, particularly, heaven forbid you make a rational comment on somebody's post about a challenge, a clinical challenge, not getting personal, but everything is taken personally. Yeah. And I think that is probably my biggest worry, is that I think it can be very uniting. I think we've definitely got a new network of people, from purely Instagram. But if I'm a student coming through now, I wouldn't know where to start, and I think we've seen that with some of our juniors. I think they do get such misinformation. And I think that's probably its biggest challenge, how we navigate that. And I guess my last point on it is I was part of a conference with some university students, and there was another NHS physio on there, and there's he was very anti-social media. You shouldn't be on it, don't be on it. And he was saying that to students. I actually pushed back and said, no, because whether he understood it or not, his argument was that there's no evidence on social media. It's all people's opinion. And I was like, whoa. I was like, no, that is completely opposite what we're trying to do here. It's introducing information to the industry. So that would be mine, I think. Yeah.
All right.
Do you want to follow that?
Not really. I think it is, you touched upon it. Where do you start when you come out of uni, I guess? Who do you listen to? Who do you not listen to? How do you make up your own mind? We sort of see it with our end, and we try and advise them on better sources, or, readdress the hierarchy of medicine, hierarchy of research, and all that sort of stuff. But probably to re-gauge the previous answer, I think a better understanding of what physio actually is, not from the physios internally, I guess, but more from the professionals we work with, the patients we work with, the perception of what physio actually is, because I think that remains the biggest barrier. People still don't know what it is. Like, they either think it's a guy that runs on with a run-on bag for football and pulls out a bit of spray, or they think it is a masseur. Like, there is so, the amount of times we get a call, I've got a bad neck, do you have the number of a chiropractor? Like, no, we can give you some advice and education on that, and I'll have a 10-minute conversation on the reception phone about, not why, I'm not trying to sell it to them, I'm just saying, look, try this, and some
impartial advice.
Yeah. It's, do you work with feet? Do you work with backs? Like, no one knows. I still think that's the biggest barrier. Yeah. No one actually knows what frigging physio is.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like we said before, you've got to change the public's perception. And that's done, as you say, slowly, gradually over time. And social media is a part of that. I think, social media is a double-edged sword.
Yeah.
It's not that it's perfect and it solves all our problems. It has its issues and problems and limitations, but it also has its benefits and opportunities.
Yeah.
And so to say don't use social media is naive.
Yeah.
It is, I think, something that we definitely don't want to be saying. We want to be trying to promote social media use, but it's being sensible, it's being ethical, it's being evidence-based in how we use social media. It's not, the problem is with social media, it's an entertainment platform.
Yeah.
And we're trying to use it for educational purposes.
Yeah.
So we have to play a game.
Yeah, you do.
You
You won't get
have
views.
to
You're not
work.
entertaining, no one's going to watch you.
You're going to have to work with the algorithms, as you say. You've got to
Yeah.
make it entertaining, but also educational as well. And that isn't easy to do.
No.
That takes
Yeah.
practice, trial and error, takes a bit of skill, takes a bit of artistry.
No,
as
it
well.
does. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it is something that isn't going to be suitable for everybody because you won't have those skill sets as a clinician, as a physiotherapist.
Yeah.
I mean, even fucking some of the daft things we do when we take. I mean, come on, yesterday, someone's shoving a balloon up someone's snout as a treatment.
That's it.
I mean,
How have you come to that?
The sinus clearing. Yeah.
How have you got there?
I know. And it was like, I asked my friends, like, do you think that's legit? Would you go for that treatment? And they all say no, but it's just the people going for it, and you know, it's
all the fingers up the backside. So
That is outrageous, isn't it?
There's a load of those. On
the PT Andrea sent me one yesterday, and it's just a guy. His uniform was a vest, which was the first red flag. It had fair round it as well. I'll get you the video. It had a fair round vest, and that was his working uniform. And it's just him massaging a girl's ass. That's all it fucking is. And he then says, if you have friends, feel free to go from the kitty cat claw method to using your fingers. And you're thinking, oh no. Right, this is what we're up against. But
And I bet it had hundreds of thousands of views. Right?
Oh yeah, loads. yeah, hands up, yeah. But I like that no bullshit physio. He brought out a debate about should we? I think it was him or it might have been B Strong. Should we call out other physios on certain things? And I think you should be able to. If you're putting it out there on a public domain, do it tastefully. But if they're doing something that has no backing, no evidence behind it, they're doing it for whatever reason and saying it as gospel, and then with a caption, sticking something that looks like a reference. So for the you know, the non-physio or the non-medical profession sees that, oh, it's in writing. So when we see something in writing, it's got more pull and more power. So I think there has to be some accountability. And if you're putting yourself out there, prepare to have it back.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
If you're out there looking for praise and promotion, you've also got to accept criticism and, critique.
Yeah.
And I think that's the part that, I say, a lot of quacks out there get all upset and wound up about. They say, how dare you?
Yeah.
How dare you challenge me? How dare you critique me? Yeah. That's being mean. That's being unkind. That's being nasty. I'm like, no, it's not.
Yeah.
It's a fundamental principle of science, being constructive criticism, trying to break down somebody's argument is essential. And that's something, again, I don't think physios get taught to do well. They don't get taught sometimes to critically think and analyse. They get taught to accept what the tutor has said.
Memorize it and write it down in a test.
These are the things you need to learn. Don't question about why you need to learn them.
Yeah.
I think that needs to change. And again,
honestly, I nearly failed a placement on that. So basically, there was a patient. God, how many years ago was I doing that play? It was a community-based placement, and it was a very complex case. It was a community placement. She had fibromyalgia and a lot of chronic pain conditions, but she'd been diagnosed with a Liz Frank fracture, and she was hooked on it. The problem was it was between her fifth and fourth toe. So the physio, again, I only heard of it because of working in sport. I was lucky at that stage of my career to come across it. So I just said, I don't think you've got that. I know you've been diagnosed by the GP as a Liz Frank fracture, but highly doubt with where that is located that's the source of your issue. Anyway, I got back in the car and they slap on the wrist, the physio, you can't go against the doctor. Do you think that was the right way to handle that? And I'm like, well, yeah, I actually do, because chronic pain, they cling to 9 times out of 10, they'll cling to a diagnosis, and it becomes a barrier for them.
Yeah, detrimental to their recovery.
Yeah, and again, I think this is the other problem that our profession has, is that we feel inferior to other healthcare professionals. We've got this insecurity issue that we need to get over.
Yeah,
I think that is one thing that sport does do well, is because for some reason physios within sport are seen out as you're above a doctor in a lot of respects. We were, weren't we? Some of the doctors used to get absolutely battered. You sat on the bench and you got the goalkeeper coach ripping the dog. So then when you're in those environments,
just give your paracetamol.
Yeah, exactly.
And you're taking all these very expensive people to these London-based surgeons, and they're wanting your business, and you're saying, well, actually, no, I don't think that sounds right. So then you don't ever establish that complex. So even now, we challenge quite a few surgeons, and I guess you're the same. Yeah. Whereas you're right, in a lot of situations, when a surgeon says something, a lot of physios will say that's right because of this reason. We had one very recently, a surgeon had said, going to do an operation, no rehab for the first 6 weeks. Well, to credit to him, one of the guys in the team pushed back and said, you're wrong, like, fundamentally wrong. And
comes back to the first point, they don't know what physio is.
Yeah.
I mean, we're going to get him in the gym from week one.
Yeah,
Start squatting.
Yeah.
Like, well, we know how to load this chap up.
Yeah.
But again, that's that trust and respect issue as well between the professions as well. We're not just seen as masseuses. We're not just seen as strength and conditioning coaches. We are part of the, say, multidisciplinary team.
Yeah.
But we do have to get over our inferiority and complex insecurity complexes that we have as a profession and feel like we can hold our own better with medics and surgeons and we don't have to be subservient to them all the time.
So to be fair, the next question leads on quite nicely. So the role of AI in our profession, where do we see that? Where does that fit? Do we see it as a fit? Can we use it?
It's going to make life easier.
Yeah,
that's for sure. When I look at some of these things, like, have you seen Heidi? This thing,
the note taking.
Yeah, we had to trial this, aren't we?
Yeah, we need to trial that.
Yeah, that blows my mind. That especially with an online consultation, it's listening in the background, and then it transcribes everything.
Right.
It also analyzes it and produces the key points and its recommendations and what it thinks is the potential diagnosis is and the differential diagnosis is.
Yeah.
So it can certainly help us, but I also think we're not going to rely on it 100%.
Yeah.
Because I've been using ChatGPT and putting some cues in there that I know the answers to see what it comes back with. What the fuck? That's where did you get that from? ChatGPT. That's completely inaccurate as well. So it's not perfect. It's not 100% without its issues, but it certainly has. Yeah.
Do you think it can fundamentally replace how? Because I think
no. Did your answer?
No. I'm going to rephrase it. How close do you think we'll get to it getting to being able to replace an assessment? Because it never will, but do you think we can ever actually use it as a triage tool?
It's a tool. So it's there as something to aid and assist. It's like an assistant in the background that makes your life a little bit easier.
Yeah.
That's the way to look at AI. It's never going to replace you. It's never going to take over your job.
Yeah.
Because it won't have the same critical thinking skills. It won't have the same ability to be able to, spot something that just doesn't
be
feel
a bit more lateral.
Yeah, it won't have that human intuition. When you look at the serious risks of, pathologies with musculoskeletal conditions, it isn't these red flags that we often spot. It's the something that just makes us feel
gut, isn't it?
It's that gut instinct. It's that human intuition that AI won't have. Oh, this person doesn't have night pain, therefore they don't have cancer.
You don't tick this box, box.
So it's not that simple.
Yeah.
As I say, there is something else. It's something in the ether. It's a hunch. It's a feeling.
Yeah.
And AI won't be able to get that.
And I think in terms of the rehab side of things, I think, one of the things that we've always been a huge believer in is that you can't get away from that people by people in whatever profession it is. And, sometimes, the difference between and what we try and instill in a lot of our team is sometimes it might not even be the rehab. It might just be that you have a fantastic rapport with that individual. They're looking for some reassurance, some confidence. If the worst thing you can do is give them some confidence, give them some self-esteem, give them some self-belief, that is such a powerful, ability in its own right, isn't it? Which AI will never be able to replace. And we say that, all the time, don't we?
Well, I don't think the general population is ready to trust AI anyway in this field. Like, I think if you were being assessed completely by, and the individual knew they were being completely assessed by AI, I don't think they'd buy into it. I don't think you'd get that. Yeah, I don't think you'd get that buy-in.
No, even
which is hard enough. It's hard enough for us anyway.
Absolutely. Even the most keenest technological person out there will have some concerns and doubts. And I've got some concerns and doubts. I'm sure you have about being assessed by AI.
Yeah.
And I'm definitely know my mother wouldn't fucking trust AI as well. Yeah. So again, it's a generational thing. But even as I say, the most youngest technological usage populations, they probably still won't be happy with 100% assessment by AI.
So again, I think we've already touched upon this sort of loosely, but specialisms within physiotherapy. Do we think that it will become more generalist? Do we think it will become more specialist? You know, I'm quite a big believer in generalist physiotherapy. I actually sometimes do use that term. I think that physiotherapy has become over specialized. I think it's, you know, particularly when we get a referral from a case manager, for example, it has to be a hand, you know, therapist. It has to be when if you actually look at then, well, what's involved in that rehab of a hand, it is a specialism in its own right, but I think again it's overcomplicated. You know, I think to be fair to Ian Gatt, you know, he does a lot of work, and a few of the guys have been on a few of his courses, and he's you know, in terms of the boxing profession, and if you actually look at the fundamentals of what he's doing, he is sort of saying it's a lot of strength and conditioning through ranges of joints and things. So it's kind of, do we think it's overgeneralized, over specialized? You know,
I think specialise, and I can't get away. And if you want to be interested in MSK and even Euro, I do think you need to specialise, or at least have a very good understanding of response to load, the said principles, how we adapt to certain movements, but knowing that one exercise isn't better than the other. Like, yes, you can go into the intricacies of exercise A might stimulate a little bit more than exercise B, but ultimately the power is in getting people moving. You know, and I think having that understanding of how to accurately progress or regress load, how to not load it too quick, too soon, sticking to the basics, you know, 10% rule or rule of two, completing something twice, thinking, okay, well, we can up it by 5 to 10%. Just having that basic understanding of how to train, I guess, I think should be a specialty no matter which area you want to work in, because it applies itself to nearly every area of physio for me. So I think, yes, general, but specialising in general, if you like.
Okay.
Just get me on that 10 Downing Street.
Yeah.
Politician.
I'd say, all right, Boris.
I'm a specific generalist.
On my next course.
I'm pretty much going to agree with what you've said. I think, you know,
Get on camera.
Right, it's a soundbite.
I think people again buy into specialism.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
there is an element there of again playing the game, of sometimes marketing yourself as a specialist in a certain area, but then understanding the basic generalist principles that you can use not just in your specialist area. So I think, I agree. I think it's that ability to be able to have some core elements that are generalistic. That means you can see and help anybody with any type of musculoskeletal pain and problem.
Yeah.
But then I do think, as I say, if you are known as a specialist in areas, that will also help from a confidence building point
I suppose,
of
actually,
for some people,
that is fair.
I've got whether you call it a special, but I've got a special interest in this.
That is fair, actually.
I spend a little bit more time understanding and reading research on this area. I mean, I class myself as an upper limb specialist.
Yeah.
So, I have this specialism, but it doesn't mean I can't help people with back pain, knee pain, foot and ankle problems as well. And the other benefit of specialism is it can sometimes make your life as a clinician that little bit easier, because it narrows and focuses your attention. It can sometimes make the noise that's all around us a little bit quieter. Can make that life a little bit easier for your own continuing education purposes as well.
I guess it's easy because you're going to be in it all the time. It's easy to spot. It's like pattern recognition, isn't it? So I guess if something doesn't fit a pattern, then
you have to be careful with specialists that you don't neglect understanding and keeping up to date with other areas, but it also does make your life a bit easier for keeping up to date with certain areas.
Go on, you answer it then, Mr. Question Master.
I mean, I think I did answer it.
I did at the beginning,
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
Shove it up your ass.
You go waffly answer more waffly than me.
Kind of building on from what you said is, I think the negatives of it would be that when egos come into play, and I'm a specialist, so therefore my opinion is greater than yours, I suppose. So like we were saying about neurophysio, is that some of the concepts within neurophysio potentially haven't got the evidence that we would want, but they still, Bobath, for example, let's talk about it. I don't know enough loads about Bobath anymore, but
bullshit.
well,
It's
yeah, I don't know enough about
It's
it.
one guy's opinion back in the 1970s who decided this was the way to go. And there's been no evidence of superiority in outcomes or anything behind it. It's just literally one of these things that say got into the terminology and into the training just because some guy back in the day said something.
Yeah. Which does lead me quite nicely on to my last question, and we'll finish on this one because I think it's quite a meaty one, which is gurus. And, you know, in terms of how do we dispel, because I think, trying to think of a takeaway point for, you know, some of the more, you know, junior physios that might be watching this or see a few sound bites on social media, is how do we educate them on how do you spot a guru? And it's probably quite simple to us, but to them it might not be so simple. So yeah, how do you kind of spot a cult or a guru?
The first red flag is when one thing will fix everything. They they base a lot of what they say on their opinion and their own experiences, or it worked for Mrs. Jones, but it works for whoever, or I have fixed all these people. And it's the ego and this sort of self-entitlement that you should just like pick up on. Personality, half of it you can pick up on pretty easy for me. They tend to display certain tendencies where it's all about them, and if you do this, it will fix everything that's up with you. And it was like the back guy that says drink more green tea.
Yeah, he's a
guru.
Yeah,
I mean,
he's a
saying that, you know, green tea is going to cure your back because
it
it
hydrates
reduces
you.
inflammation.
Yeah,
That's his golden go-to. So I think it's that single track, do this and it will result in this, which I tend to, if you had to put a definition on it, I'd go with that really.
Yeah, for me, a guru, first of all, is somebody who doesn't think or say they're a guru or denies they're a guru. That's a
very good point.
That's a one to keep an eye out for. But also that doesn't allow any criticism or doesn't accept any criticism from anybody. Rejects it flatly. Appeals to their authority. Goes and then anybody who does criticize them, he goes and attacks. And I said he because normally with the gurus, it is normally a he as well. So they tend to be more males than. I'm not going to say there aren't any female gurus out there, but it tends to be a male egotistical thing, I think. So we tend to see more of them in the, say, normally male population. But yeah, they just don't accept criticism from anybody. They won't accept it, and if they do get criticised, they normally respond by attacking that person's character, reputation, experiences, and say, make them feel inferior, insignificant, rather than actually listening to what the other person said.
Yeah.
It's quite Star Wars. They deal in absolutes, don't they?
Yeah.
Absolutes. Yeah. Sifs.
I think one of the things that I would say as well, just to kind of build on what you've both said, is because I've fallen into this trap where I've got into it with not particularly a guru as such, but an avid follower of a guru. And they will, so those listening, they will probably quote you a lot of evidence. Yeah. But then make sure you look into that evidence, because then when you actually look into it, they're very good at quoting abstracts and key points of the evidence, but you actually then read the limitations.
It's done on mice.
Yeah.
Exactly. Done on mice, the hierarchy of the evidence, it's case studies, it's case reviews, it's not meta-analysis, it's not RCTs.
Huge bias, they've usually done it themselves. So
yeah. In all seriousness, the lot of low back stuff that
the K-tape originally, that was done by their own, by K-tape, wasn't it? All the research on K-tape.
And, like the Nord board, and obviously Stu doesn't like those guys because, they started off in the research field and then all of a sudden out sprung a Nord board, and and then so you do see it quite a lot, but it's
evidence-based practice. Evidence-based practice has been sometimes jumped on by the guruistic culture because there is evidence out there to support any opinion you have, and you can quote a PubMed number. Say, here's evidence to support my opinion. That doesn't mean that opinion or that evidence is still correct or accurate. So yeah, you got to be careful of that, and that's where it again comes down to critical thinking skills.
It does.
Being
It
able
does,
to,
yeah.
We can all
you know,
design a crap
think.
study, can't we? And then get it published. Well,
No, you can.
Yeah.
You know, there's a lot of, you know,
predatory journals. You can pay. You can pay for getting something published now, and it's very sometimes not even peer reviewed, or it's given a quick scant peer review. But as long as you paid your €2,000, it'll get published, and you'll get a PubMed number, and it'll be citable, and you can say, "I'm a published author."
Wow.
Old Squat University's played a number of times. Him and his little collective gang that he works with has managed to, you know, absolutely get some dross evidence out there that says about, you know, the harms of lifting with a flex spine and, you know, the disc adaptation model and all this sort of stuff. But it is just, yeah, it's basically they've got a peer reviewed blog which hasn't been peer reviewed. They've just paid for it, and they've got a citable PubMed number.
what is his background?
Who, Aaron?
Yeah.
He's he started off as a personal trainer and went in to physiotherapy, and then he's got a doctorate, an American doctorate in physiotherapy.
Right.
Yeah. And to give, you know, balance and nuance here, I think Squat University has got some positives. You know, he does promote movement.
Yeah,
exercise.
he does. To be fair, he does like his compound list, doesn't he? He does.
You know, and he
Only
promotes.
if you're wearing his shoes.
That's where it all starts going wrong. He then starts putting limitations on how to move without any good, strong reasons or evidence to back that up. And that's where it all starts becoming a bit problematic. He starts, you know, saying, if you don't do this, you're going to have this. I'm like, where does that say that? Where's the evidence behind that?
Yeah.
You know, promote exercise, healthy lifestyle. Yeah, great, go for it. Just don't limit it. Don't add
that's it,
totally
limiting,
unnecessary barriers to it.
I think the again sort of last point of mine is I've not. I think Squat University, I don't know if it's just, again, confirmation bias on my part, but they kind of dropped off a bit. It's the knees over toes guys that are making a bit of a show at the minute. Like,
and again,
you know, making sure that you do your tib ant raises
Yeah,
every day.
Their original message was good.
Yeah,
like,
it was.
Move,
It was.
Don't be worried about
it
X,
was.
Y, and Z, but
I also think that part of the reason it's not their fault. That again, it's the social media algorithm. The people run with it. They start to misrepresent it. And, you know, I've actually spoken to Ben Patrick, the guy who started.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he reached out to me and he said, I've seen you constructively criticising some of my stuff. He said, thank you for doing that.
Okay,
and we've had a few
Nice.
so he's got an open mindset.
Yeah.
And he has said, you know, a lot of people do claim things that I haven't said.
Oh, really?
Okay.
Yeah, so they are.
Fair.
He says, I've made some errors, I've made some mistakes, but people have run with my approach.
Yeah.
Turn it, they twist it a bit.
Yeah.
And that's another problem, I think.
Yeah,
Sometimes
interesting.
when something gets popular, other people will jump onto it.
Yeah.
And try to adapt it for themselves, to get carve a little niche out themselves as well.
yeah,
And that's where it all starts becoming confused and messed up. And
Yeah, that's good to know. Yeah, really good to know.
The Irish chap we come across yesterday, and again, he similar thing. You know, it's because then they take it and run with it, and then go to the extreme, and you know, like the extreme sissy squat, they make it look like that happens overnight.
Yeah.
And it's when they link it to your knee pain is because you can't do this.
Yeah.
And it's that's the issue. It's because
poor old Mavis now thinks she's always going to have
Yeah,
knee pain
exactly.
because she can't do a full range sissy squat.
you know, it's ridiculous. The strength it takes, and to be fair to him, you know, the dedication, the strength to get to that stage, but
And
well
also
done
your
for
genetics as well.
Yeah,
That's the other bit. The
genetics,
other
yeah.
part, you know, not everybody has the range
Correct.
of movement, the anthropometrics to be able to do these things that a lot of these influencers can do.
Yeah,
And I see that in the mobility programs. People getting so hung up on, like, I've got to achieve these things that these guys. I'm like, your genetics and your shape of your bony geometries are just never going to let it. But they've got this itch; they just want to scratch. That guy can do it, so I must be able to do it.
yeah, exactly. Yeah,
I'm like,
Perfect.
you're just getting yourself into this negative mindset, and you're never gonna meet your expectations.
One of the best examples of that actually is who's the guy who champions who did the 5 pillars of healthy aging?
don't know.
I can't remember. He's been on a fair few like Huberman podcasts and stuff, but basically he's one of his key metrics for aging well is how long you can hang as a off it. It's like a minute or something. It's a long time to just hang there. But basically, when they actually looked into it, it's not actually. So people have taken that very literally, that you need to be able to hang, and that would equate to better health. But what they've actually found is because the people who do the associated exercises that would just naturally improve that movement, it indicates health. It's like the whole press up, 50 press ups, and reduces your cardiac risk. Yeah. It's because you have to be a certain, exactly
grip
that.
strength makes you live longer. So poor old Mavis is working on a grip thinking she's going to live to 105. I'm like, no.
But in actual fact, it's probably because you're carrying your shopping to the car every week.
Oh, you're holding onto a bar.
You're
doing deadlifting. You're holding on some weights. It's
that.
that. It's not the fact you can hang. It's the fact you can probably lift up your weight whilst holding onto it.
And that's probably where messaging gets a little bit lost, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's not that literal. It's not X equals Y.
That answers your guru question. That's what they'll do.
Yeah.
They'll say, there it is. You answered your own question. Well done, mate.
Thank you. I actually planned all of that.
It's just went all the way round to eventually get there.
Not that clever.
Because we'll finish there and then we'll soundbite the life out of that.
Oh, Christ.
But no, I think that's a natural conclusion to kind of finishing up. As I said, I'd like to say this is a very formal entry and exit to a podcast, but it's not. It was just a nice chat, really, and to start the day off well.
Enjoyed it. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks. Looking forward to this afternoon.
Yeah.
Done there, Charles. Thank you very much, mate.
He's been waiting for an hour and a half just to press that button, haven't you, Charles? Yeah.